on the eve of Jackson Job's first major league start, which, by the way, you probably checked out a lot of our Jackson Job content on our YouTube channel. We figured it would be a good way to segue into the Tigers and Mariners starting at 9:40. Tomorrow, Casey Mize will be pitching tomorrow, I believe. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Some fella named Scooble.
Some guy named Scooble on Wednesday.
Oh.
As the Tigers look to get in the win column. Alongside me is Chris Brown and Brandon Day. First and foremost, thank you for, if you have not, please subscribe to our YouTube channel or subscribe to our Twitter feed. Our Twitter feed is back to being, or X, whatever you want to call it. It's grown exponentially here again. So we're also on Blue Sky. So if you don't like Twitter, there you go. We're also on Blue Sky as well.
It's okay. They sold Twitter, so I guess it's okay.
Oh, did they? But didn't they sell it to one of his other companies? Or
Yeah.
Well, I didn't even hear about that. The only problem with Blue Sky right now is that it limits you to small videos. I think 50 megabytes. So unless basically we can't show any of our like pitching cut-ups on Blue Sky, we can only basically show like a 15-second clip. I'm sure they'll get there eventually, but otherwise I try to share things at the same time on both of them when I can.
Yeah, so there's a reason why to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Or if you're not a Patreon subscriber, there's a free subscription. There's a couple paid tiers you can help us out with. And all that just goes back into what we do, especially this weekend as we are going to be splitting duties for the first time on opening day. So Chris and I will be at Tigers opening day, but then I'll be heading to Erie and Chris will be heading to West Michigan on Friday, as the home openers for Erie and West Michigan will be on Friday. And I'll be there for Saturday and probably Sunday for Erie as well. And Emily Walden will be, I think, there Friday or Saturday. And I got to talk to Ashley, who Ashley joined us for the first ever Toledo. It was her first trip to Toledo as a kind of an evaluator. And she kicks off, she's going to be she plays a big part of the Weber report. She was there doing a couple prospect reports. You can find her on her website under the reports, too. She did one on Malloy and, Jermani Jones. And by the way, gentlemen, I mean, I know you were the conductor of the Manning trade, but Brandon, I'm sorry, man. It was. He looked fine the first 2 innings, and then Columbus is like, you know what? Nah, bro.
Yeah, I left that position about 4 years ago, and moved on. But I still would have thought, even going into last year, like maybe there's a chance, but it's just he's 27, guys. People are kind of still talking about him like a prospect, and it's like, why don't they move him to the bullpen? He can throw 95, 96 for about 45 pitches. And the splitter kind of okay, doesn't really do that much. Sweeper kind of okay. Maybe in relief something could work, but they just don't even seem to want to bother. And I think it's pretty much over. So
yeah, that's the thing that's strange to me is, and maybe that'll be coming soon. You don't ever want to like give up on a starting pitcher, right? Like we've seen other teams do that. Like Carlos Carrasco, I think it took him forever for them to put him in a bullpen, and then he figured out as a reliever, and then came back to starting. I think he was younger when all that happened. Yeah, like just something, because he just looked disinterested, and I don't know how to describe it, but just there's just not a whole lot of compete there. And you'd like to just go out there for an inning and just throw as hard as you can. That's all we want from you. We don't even care. Just go out there and throw really hard, and see if it sparks something. But I don't know. I think he's seen the writing on the wall, and who knows?
Yeah.
It was a real bummer.
When the conversation, even from like AJ Hinch starts to get further and further from like the obvious reality, that's probably a pretty good sign that it's over. Because, if you're on the cusp, AJ Hinch will shoot you straight and tell, like, this is what we need this guy to do. With Matt, it was like, oh, he's pretty close. We just think, there's ways he can help us out. And, just a couple more things need to come together. And it was just all vague, and like AJ's not vague when it really counts. So yeah, I think everybody knows the score, and maybe, if there's anything left, maybe that's what Matt needs is to get kind of cut and have to scramble and decide if he really wants to do this. And if he does, yeah, some things have got to change, pretty drastically. And they just haven't for years really now.
I mean, the home run he gave up to Tom Nunez, who is a kind of a career backup journeyman minor league catcher. I mean, this guy his last home run was like in July or I think August or something like that. of last year, and he has like total. I think maybe, I don't know how many. He doesn't have that many home runs minor league total wise. I mean, he hit a meatball, served up, and just crushed it. And then the rest of the game, the bullpen did its job and kept Toledo into the game until they had a chance to come back. West Michigan, Erie, and Lakeland all start Friday. So just a heads up, everybody, for those who are just tuning in. But yeah, it was one of those things too where I was watching the start with Chris, and we're just like, I was trying to find any kind of positives, and it just wasn't happening. It was just the fact that when Angel Martinez and Juan Brito, Juan Brito had an off game compared to what he did on Friday. I mean, he's a legitimate prospect, and Angel Martinez looks pretty good out there as well. But the rest of the Columbus's roster is kind of like a hodgepodge of veterans and even the pitching side of things, which we'll talk about in detail here in a second. They had 5 or 6 guys who were making their AAA debut from high A. They never spent any time in Akron. And usually it's not, and that was because of injuries. And I think they also, I was talking to our buddy, friend of the show, Justin, who does the Locked On Guardians podcast and does a minor league website too for Cleveland, said that Cleveland had a bunch of guys on their taxi squad out in Arizona that would have been in AAA. So AAA, that was even Columbus's best squad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough to watch. It was, and Lockhart, Lockhart had kind of a rough outing too. It kind of fell apart on him. He and Manning both kind of fell apart in the third inning. Manning started when he made it an error himself, just a little dribbler back to him, and he tried to pick it up and couldn't. And then it all went to hell from there. Lockhart just he looked like he lost command in that game. Actually, it was more like control, like he'd lost the strike zone. But it was raining off and on Friday, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
So it looked like a tough situation for anybody. But that the starting pitching wasn't great this weekend. Dietrich Enns had probably the best start of any of the starters. I'm looking at his stats. Yeah, 3 2/3, 4 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. That that'll work as they get him throwing more innings. But I was kind of surprised to see Montero not used in the first weekend. But maybe they were holding him back just in case there was some sort of weird doubleheader with the Dodgers.
Yeah,
I don't know, because they're probably not going to head back out to L.A. But in any event, I'm sure we'll see him soon.
It was a little bit. I mean, it's not odd, but I mean, I'm sure you guys, when you first looked at the rosters, like, okay, there's, nobody really moved up. They didn't move Troy Melton up. They didn't move RJ Pettit up. There's a couple other guys that they could have promoted. So this kind of felt a little bit like the holdovers. Like maybe, a couple of these guys are going to get looks for, maybe a month, maybe a couple weeks, Manning included. And if nothing is changing, you would assume that the roster would start to turn over there. But yeah, a couple of those guys I kind of thought would be up. We got the Mud Hens roster, and I was just sort of like, meh. You got Hao-Yu Lee, you've got Jace Young, and you've got Justyn-Henry Malloy, or you had Justyn-Henry Malloy, who's just been called up to replace Gleyber Torres. And then, Jahmai Jones is kind of interesting, to a degree, but otherwise, there's just really not a whole lot to get too excited about with them right now, other than the bullpen. Like a lot of the, there's some pretty good bullpen arms who the Tigers will have up. But Dietrich Enns was a lot like a better version of what Manning and Lockhart did. He was running out of steam, and Gabe Alvarez was like, all right, I've got Wilkel here. We've got an off day. Let's get Wilker Hernandez in there, get a few innings out of him, and he was pretty solid. Got hit up a little bit one inning, but did strike out 5. So that was positive to see him getting whiffs and called strikes at the AAA level. That was kind of like the minor positives, but it doesn't even feel like we're really dealing with what you're going to see from the Mud Hens most of the season. This still feels like a little bit of like the carryover from last year to me.
Yeah, and that's where for Wilkel, by the way, he's been in the system since 2017. I mean, that was a long. Like there was somebody that made a comment about that on Twitter, and good to see you in here, Colin. Colin was there with us on Friday alongside with Ashley. And the thing about Wilkel is that like he kind of struggled at the beginning a little bit, but I liked his slider looked really good. I'm going to pull up a picture or a video of his slider here in a second, but
I mean, he was 17 when we traded for him, wasn't he? Maybe 18.
No, you forget that though. You know what I mean? Like I don't think about like he was the last remnant of the, I believe, what is the Upton trade?
Yeah, Justin Upton. Yep, from the Angels.
And it was the guy who was it an outfielder that retired like a year later, didn't he?
Troy Montgomery was that his
Troy
name?
Montgomery,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. He's long gone. I mean, he's
Yeah.
he's selling insurance somewhere.
Yeah.
And I remember his exit was kind of unceremonious. It was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
he like mooned everybody on the way out or something like that. It was like, oh, no,
I forgot
funny.
about that.
Wilkel. I mean, I don't think it was that exactly, but there was something where it was like, all right, well, he's gone. But yeah, Wilkel. It's just kind of they let him go as a minor league free agent, and then re-signed him. And I must have seen him pitch a dozen times now in person.
Yeah.
Like just he's been around forever. And there'll be times where like, oh, that's not so bad. And then other times his velocity's down, and then other times his velocity's way up. You're like, what's going on? He's always been a big, strong kid. Who knows? That you try somebody in the bullpen, something might happen. If he does have that slider working, then that's decent sinker slider guy. I don't know. But
It's different. It's sort of like he reminds me a lot of like where Dylan Smith is, where like every once in a while Dylan Smith is throwing 97, 98 and breaking off a good slider, and you're like, oh. And then no, he goes right back to 92, 94. Yeah, a little more mediocre. And yeah, Wilkel's kind of been the same, kind of inconsistent, never quite able to like replicate, from outing to outing. So yeah, here we go.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I mean, it was more of like a sweeping action to it, but
yeah,
it was
that's a lot more sweep than I ever remember seeing him have.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like usually his slider's always been kind of a short sweep to it, but that was. And they mentioned this during the broadcast too, that like the idea is that the Tigers are gonna have him there, air it out, and he came back after I thought like just there was he allowed a couple hits there, and he came back and had a good bounce back, and so that it was definitely a booster for him because I think that as we were mentioning earlier, we'll talk about the possible rosters right now because the rosters have been kind of a weird debate among people because every other team's rosters are out, but the Tigers, and so it's kind of like it's just it's I don't know what's going on over there, but this veteran bullpen roster, but it was also another person that stood out to me this weekend that didn't look that bad was Ryan Miller, who is he's a minor league. You talk about minor league free agent. I think he's like 29, 30 years old. He's not technically a prospect, but definitely had some good swing and miss stuff. He's shorter than when he on the write up, so. He went out there. I was like, I thought it was a young kid and realized it was Ryan Miller, and he didn't look that bad. But it was Bailey Horn too. Bailey Horn's velocity stood out to me a little bit, but I could see why the Tigers potentially. I understand why they were trying to get him out twice. His slider's really good. He's got a good, interesting mix to him, and where it's like, if we ever see Freddie Pacheco, the legend of Freddie Pacheco at some point, two arms that maybe you could do something with in the bullpen.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't think Matt Gage looked that bad either. Like, there's something to work with there, but obviously the featured players, are until some decisions get made are going to be Foley and Andrew Chafin, and getting those guys up. So I know people probably aren't paying a lot of attention to Bailey Horn and Matt Gage, but no one was paying that much attention to Tyler Holton or Brendan Hanafy when the Tigers picked him up. Will Vest, like people were always interested in. But he kind of was bouncing around and no one could figure it out until the Tigers cracked the code. So, we're kind of, unfortunately, especially with the injuries, the Tigers in the position where they were last year, where they're going to be like building the roster over the course of the year and trying to figure out the bullpen. And you never know. Bailey Horn could certainly play a part. The Tigers obviously liked him enough to keep doubling back on him. So we'll see if there's something there.
Who also had kind of a rough weekend was Andrew Navigado, who went 1 for 8 at the plate, but he also had a couple miscues in the field too. Friday, witnessing that firsthand, where there was 2 balls where one I think it was a bobble transfer to second base to Lee, and just fumbled it.
that ended up loading the bases. I think with nobody out that was the Lockhart's inning that fell apart.
Correct.
Yeah. It was I think he'd put 2 on, and then he got in the ground ball that could have been a double play, and then it ended up being no outs and the bases loaded, and then that was kind of it for him. He tried to battle back, but he couldn't. But yeah, that one was just a misplay. The second one for him was you'd like to see him make the play, but it was tough. It was he was behind the grass in the outfield, and the ball hit the lip and bounced up on him, so he couldn't catch it cleanly, and so that's how he dropped it. But I mean, that's the thing with Navigado is they want him to be better defensively, and. Yeah, he plays a billion different positions, and I don't know. It's one of those things where they'd probably ideally they'd love it if he could play shortstop, but they don't think he can. I don't think, and they probably don't think he can play third base. So it's like, well, he's at second base. They have a billion of those, or he's in the corner outfield where the bat might be a little bit light, and they have other people ahead of him. But I don't know, with the injuries we've seen, and he didn't stop hitting in
Yeah.
spring training. Like, I do think there's something interesting in the bat there, but it just feels like it's never going to be his time, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's just kind of caught in between, just a little too light in all areas. But I agree. I thought he put together a lot of pretty good at bats this spring, even against better pitching.
Yeah,
Even when he didn't get a hit, didn't look overwhelmed or anything. And he looks like he could play shortstop. It's not like the tools are like way short. They're
yeah,
yeah,
just a little short, and there's just always that extra mistake in there somewhere. Where he's just either just not sharp, or something with the fundamentals and footwork and just being on the ball. He just gets caught in between what he's trying to do sometimes. And yeah, it's just hard. It's hard to become a utility guy. That always seems like an easy role, but in fact, that's like the hardest thing to do. You don't know where you're going to play. You can't make a single mistake, really. You can't make a big like game causing mistake because you don't have any status on the team. So it's a weird position to be in, to try to become that guy, to try to become Zach McKinstry or
yeah.
Andy Ibanez, and a lot of times those guys aren't appreciated enough. Ibanez and McKinstry put together, I thought, the two best, like most professional, like September October 2024 Tigers looking at bats of the
Yeah.
entire series by
Yeah.
drawing those two walks. While Riley Green, Colt Keith are just flailing at splitters when they're
Yeah.
you're ahead in the count, bro, or the count's even, and you're chasing. So yeah, it just always brings to mind like why managers talk about their utility guys so much and why they cling to them like security blankets, like Don Kelly.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think people appreciate the athleticism that it takes to do something like Ryan Kreidler going
Yeah.
from shortstop to
Yeah.
center field, and
Yep.
and even Javi Baez. Javi Baez is a monster athlete. You just I think we just see guys play shortstop and we go, okay, well, he's a pretty good shortstop. You don't realize that they could play every other position on the field, including pitcher, probably.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. I mean, if for everybody that's kind of complaining about Ryan Kreidler being there, I mean, he made a really good catch, a sensational catch. I think it was Friday or Saturday in center field.
Yeah,
And there's a reason why his glove is there, and Malloy
Yeah.
wasn't. And there was just I knew this was going to happen too. This moment I started posting clips on Friday and Saturday with Malloy. I go, if he gets off to a good start, watch what's going to happen. And it sure is,
yeah.
it's predictable.
Well, he's a big league hitter. Maybe
Yeah.
not a regular or a great big league hitter, but he went 3 days in Toledo and did what you would expect a big league hitter to do down there. What did he go 5 for 11?
5 for 11.
A homer, 2 doubles, 2 walks, I think.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that they should make that level look easy. And so I'm glad he got to come back up. He did deserve to be on the team. It's just the way it was, right? They needed somebody to play center field. They had too many corner guys. Malloy is not a great defender. He's just the odd man out. And we know, everybody knows Kreidler's deficiencies, right? Like he can hit a fastball, but pitchers know that, so they don't throw him fastballs, and then he's basically out of luck.
Yeah.
But
I was kind of hoping, okay, maybe he's had some time. He's finally healthy. I mean, we all know he's had like his hand and his wrist broken like every season the last 3 years, and sometimes that can kind of play into it. And he did hit the ball hard a lot this spring. There was a lot of 107s to 109s that were kind of surprising to me a little bit. But yeah, I mean, is he 28? He's 27 or 28. There's just not that much there. They just don't have a center fielder. And, here we are, people being upset about Ryan Kreidler being on the roster. And it's all goes back to the fundamental roster construction.
Yeah, and a series of misfortunes that
Yeah,
not
for sure.
necessarily like I don't think it would matter that much, or people would be as upset, if had they gotten more bats in the offseason. Of course, the one bat that they did get is now hurt.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, all right, well.
Somewhere Scott Harris is preparing to trade for Rafael Devers and complete the circle.
Nice. There you go.
Oh,
and
God.
let him play third. But
Yeah.
no, or maybe just let Devers keep sinking Boston season and then trade for Bregman at the deadline.
Hey,
But in any event, yeah, I mean, Malloy hit the way you wanted to. Young hit the way you would want him to as well. I think he ended up with a homer and a double and
Yeah, 4 walks.
4 walks. Yeah, I mean it's with Young. Young is one of those ones where it's just tough because you need to see him hit major league pitching.
Yeah.
And he's not going to get much of that in AAA. It's just the way it is. Like even Malloy was kind of beaten up. They weren't getting 95 plus consistently down there, if at all. A lot of those guys were just throwing junk.
Yep.
I think there was one pitcher on Friday. I want to say, I think there was a reliever who they got. I can't remember off the top of my head. I know they faced the starter they faced on Friday was like a junk baller. I don't want to say junk baller. Sorry, he's just really like slider. But none of the guys threw a lot of heat. Again, like I was mentioning earlier, they had 5 to 6 guys in the roster who were making a AAA debut, and a lot of them were guys that are going to send down the Akron here once the taxi squad comes back from Arizona because Cleveland's starting. So
It was
they
Doug
were
Nikhazy.
Doug Nikhazy. Yeah, that's it. Doug Nikhazy.
Parker
Yeah.
Mashinsky was in there. Jack Leftwich,
Yeah.
former Florida, weekend pitcher and one-time Tigers draft pick, I think, out of high school.
I think
But
that's
yeah,
right.
they had a whole bunch of, they have some interesting names. There was another, was it Tanner Burns? Did they see Tanner Burns?
I don't think he made an appearance though. Or did he? No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. But
I think it's, but anyway, they did what they needed to do. Hao-Yu Lee had a solid first series. There's still a little bit more swing and miss than you'd like to see, but he was working. He was much more patient, like than he was in spring and in the spring breakout. Like that was the confusing thing to us. Like there was some concern there, and Brandon's voiced it before. Like he seems to be late on velocity a lot, but he just was like just swinging at everything in spring, and in this, he's like showing much more patience already. So
yeah,
I don't know. I just think he was trying to hit his way into the big leagues.
he looked like he was in a hurry to hit for sure.
Yeah.
Tanner Burns did get the win on Saturday. Yeah,
Okay.
he did pitch an inning.
Okay.
But yeah, it was the same thing. Yeah, with Young. I mean, Lee is significantly younger and less experienced. Maybe just sitting at AAA most of the year, he starts to piece that together. But yeah, Young kind of has to hit major league pitching because seeing him just beat up on 90-mile-per-hour fastballs and guys who are hanging 45 sliders and stuff like that isn't going to prove anything. Even it was nice to see him go opposite field.
Yeah.
You like that? That's a little bit of a change, and it makes you think maybe he's working on that a little bit because he hit a double that way later on in the series. But yeah, overall, it's just hard. It's really hard to just evaluate from the numbers. Like, okay, has anything actually changed? Are these guys hot, or are they just seeing relatively mid pitching after spring camp and are pouncing on it? So
yeah, and his homer was left on left, which was kind of cool to see too. Yeah,
Yep.
it's just like we said, you want these guys to go down there and perform and prove that they're too good for the level, and so they're both off to a pretty good start there.
Yeah. But of course, the Tigers are also in a different place than they used to be, where
Yeah.
if you're too good for that level and you need to see major league pitching, you can't just get to see major league pitching. You have to be able to, to contribute, obviously, because we ostensibly are trying to win the division, I think, right?
Yeah, we would hope so. Yes.
Yeah. So
No,
Yeah,
that's an example of him staying balanced too, because a lot of times what we saw in spring training and even early on in the first game Friday, he looked like he was still swinging out of his shoe tops, if you will.
yeah. And he was supposed to be, all spring they were talking about, him kind of working on what I'll just casually call his bucket stepper tendencies, to fly open. And, there's a little bit more of that. You like seeing him drive the ball to right center more than anybody else. That's a good sign.
Well, yeah, and not just drive it. I don't know if we have the clip, but he hit was it a line drive double to right at 110 miles an hour, an opposite field line drive. And I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
He's got more power than I think people realize. At least most people realize. And because I even looked at it, I'm like, how many times have anybody done that? And it's only been.
Yeah, is this you talking about this triple right here? You talking about this one right here?
Yeah. Triple to right, like just smoke this ball, and it's. I mean, that's the sort of stuff you like to see. I mean,
he's a big boy too. He
can
crack.
That's what Ashley was saying Friday. She's like, "Oh, I didn't know how massive that he is."
Yeah.
But look at the speed on it. Like when he gets out of it, he has really like that. Just wow, yeah, love that swing right there.
Yep.
And by the way, was it Will Brent? Is it Will Brennan that was out there?
Yeah.
It was terrible. Oh, he was terrible out there. No offense, he was not that good out there.
It's tough out there. But yeah, I mean, like, all right, we continue to be encouraged by Hao-Yu Lee. I think the hype got a little bit too much early in spring training, but we got to remember he's 22 and in AAA, and he's showing some good signs. Stole a base, so and played good defense. They played him at second base, I think, exclusively, but he did a good job there.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, there's good reason to be excited about him. I mean, I like him. It's just I think we've all pretty much identified like a couple simple things that need to have to happen.
Yeah.
Either he's going to get better at third base and be able to play there, or he's a second baseman and he just needs to handle velocity a little bit better, and kind of show it tape to tape a little bit more. So, yeah. I'm very encouraged. I think you guys actually put him higher than I did, and I kind of regretted it a little bit myself because I was kind of sticking with the young, like, okay, he's probably going to be, fringe average, 1.5 WAR type guy,
Mhm.
but and maybe he still will be. But yeah, I like that you guys gave How You a little bit of love because that was a really big season as a 21-year-old last year, and he's got things other, I don't want to make too big of a fuss about it, but he has things to deal with other players don't in terms of the language barrier and
Yeah,
just in general. So yeah.
that's a good point. Yeah, and I think Raj and Jerry both had him fourth in the system, and I ended up having him. I had him eighth. I think I had him behind Rayner, but I had a Young. I think we all had him ahead of Young.
Yeah.
It just the way it averaged out was that he was still
Yeah.
fourth in the system. And yeah, I mean, like, I I feel pretty good about any of those guys from 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, like Briseño, Lorenzo, Rayner, Lee. Now, if Rayner comes out and looks consistent like he did in the spring breakout, then he's going to be
That was
he's gonna
wild,
be
actually. Yeah.
he's going to be number 2 or number 1 in the system depending on time. But we'll give him time to earn that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was they went 1 and 2. The pitching just kind of faltered a little bit, but it was good to see Gabe Alvarez get his first win in AAA. We think that he's going to continue. I don't, who knows how long he'll be in AAA, but I think he's eventually going to be a big league coach and possibly a big league manager. So
Yeah.
it's fun to see.
Wouldn't be surprising to just see him
Yeah.
follow like Iapozzi did and just end up on AJ's staff next year, and then maybe he starts getting interviewed for jobs. Something
Yeah.
along those lines.
At some point, Lombard's going to get a head coaching job, and they're going to, somebody's going to be the new bench coach, and somebody's going to be so.
Incidentally, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Fangraphs did their okay, after spring training, we're going to just kind of do a little update on the top 100s, and they bumped McGonigal up a little bit, but they still didn't change his power grade. I was laughing about that. I was like, man, y'all are being stubborn. All right.
He went from 54 to 34 on their top 100, which is a pretty decent jump. But yeah, I don't think his future value changed at all, and they still have him as one of the guys who doesn't. Yeah. They're talking about his power projection, and I'm like, well, how much more projection did he need? He's hit a home run off Aaron Nola at 111 miles an hour or whatever.
And they're like, but he's a little guy. It's like we've seen Dustin Pedroia and Jose Altuve and a million other dudes. You guys just that we have the numbers now, boys. Anyway,
and he did it off of Aaron Nola again. More than that. Speaking of jumping up, by the way, on our new top 46 list, which is changed now from top 30. A couple new names in here. So Jake Miller goes from 23 to 13 as we jumped them up on the countdown, and of course we have here Enrique Hernandez, number 23,
from off the board to 23. Yes.
Yeah.
Part of this is like, we like these guys. Part of it is like, well, we got to remove. We had to remove Trey Sweeney because he graduated, and Eddie's Leonhardt because they released him. So we're like, it's kind of a pain to push all these numbers up one. Let's just throw some other guys, and it made sense, right? Like I think Jake Miller has. I mean, there's not a huge difference between 13 and 23 in the system anyway, right? That they're all roughly the same level of talent, and so it's like, all right, well, this is a guy who's been to AA. He looked good in the spring breakout. He's making some noise, so sure, he can be up there ahead of Castillo. That's fine to me. So I thought that makes sense. And Enrique Jimenez is. I think when I wrote him up a little bit, I was like, 4 or 5 years ago, we'd have been a lot more excited about Enrique Jimenez than we are because he would have been like their best international prospect, and they just the system has gotten so much stronger that switch hitting catcher with some defensive ability and gap power is just kind of in the 20s now.
Oh, we're so deep. We're just trading for dudes like Liam Hendricks and just casting them aside.
Oh yeah.
We didn't get a chance to talk about this offseason. But I mean, it was kind of an odd offseason, I thought, as far as like the Rule 5 draft and just a couple little decisions, like not trying to keep Joel Peguero, who throws 100 miles per hour and is now in Giants, AAA, I believe, trying to break through. Obviously, the Gage Workman situation, which none of us, I don't think we're real big at. It's not like any of us were like predicting he was going to make a major league roster, but I don't think anybody really wanted him to be gone and Ryan Kreidler to stay. And then you also have all these other decisions that are going to impact Toledo, like the fact that they did keep Wilmer Flores around. We'll see if he can get healthy. Obviously, they've got more bullpen guys coming in. Tyler Madison, who should get healthy, and Alex Lang over the course of the year. So we can kind of see like how it's going to set up as a feeder system for the bullpen. But I don't know. It was just kind of an odd offseason all around as far as like the small decisions that you can't really go and get too mad at. And then they just let Eddie's Leonard go, and it's like we don't have a damn infielder at all in
Yeah.
Toledo, but I'm not a big Leonard guy or anything. I didn't really expect him to do that much, but he looks like maybe 3 years from now, if he really grinds it out, he could be the next Andy Ibanez. Like that. That's kind of like what he's tracking toward. But we don't need that guy. We're all set. So okay.
So,
okay, guys.
Jay Bell with this comment, he said, "Don't cuss me out, Raj, but I think Jace is going to be better than Colt Keith. Does he ever hit a ball hard? He does. I mean, look, I'm just going to say this. I'm not going to yell at anybody, and I know that I'm a big Colt Keith defender, and I get that. I understand that. Be that as it may, Colt Keith, again, second half of the year, put up a WRC plus over 115.
From May 1st on.
From May 1st on.
Yeah, May 1st, bitches.
Yeah, May 1st on. And Jace Young struggles with velocity right now.
I'm not gonna defend Colt Keith because Colt Keith has done nothing wrong, you idiots.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like,
I'm just teasing you, but for 5 months, he had a terrible first month. No one argues that. For 5 months, 115 WRC plus. He raked on fastballs. He's kind of mediocre at breaking stuff and changeups, and he does have to get a little better. But the dude was 22. When Spencer Torkelson was up at age 22, we were like, "Oh God, what is happening?"
Yeah,
wrong.
And Jay, is Jace Young going to hit more home runs than Colt Keith? Possibly, I don't know, but
he doesn't have any big league home runs.
Yeah, he doesn't have any big league. He doesn't have any home runs. Yeah,
it took Keith a while to get his first homer too. Like it's possible. We're not gonna I would not say that it's not possible to happen. But Colt Keith, we saw time and time again in the minors. He would have little periods of struggling, like he did this past weekend. Like we're not going to deny that he looked really rough. He was late on fastballs and couldn't. He just was not good.
Yep.
But the hallmark of Colt Keith has always been the ability to snap out of that, to figure something out, to make a change for him to hit again. Like the adaptability, the adjustments. That's the huge part of baseball, and he's always been able to do that. And so I'm not terribly concerned about him struggling for too long. I think he'll figure it out. And people seem to put way too much on the first part of the season. I think somebody else very early on said that Bo Brisky should be in AAA. And it's like, okay, I guess. He was in AAA to start last year, and he didn't look great. And then he came up and was one of their best relievers for the last 3 months of the season. Guys, none of their pitchers had great command this weekend because it's early in the season. And, the difference is that, some teams will let you get away with a pitch down the middle. The Dodgers will not. They have 3 Hall of Famers at the top of their lineup, and they all hit 2 home runs because they got 6 mistakes and they crushed them all. Yeah. And that's like Skubal had some of the worst command he's had in the last year and a half.
The Dodgers starters are 3 killer starters, and they pitched pretty badly overall. Yeah. We just weren't as equipped to take advantage. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I respect what you said, Jay. I understand that, and I like what the Ninja Bees said. Dodgers are monsters. They are. That's a stacked lineup, no matter what. I mean, there's not a weak spot in that lineup. I mean, even the bottom of the order has potential. The thing is about what Colt Keith is that to me, if he's doing this at the end of May, then yeah, you have every right to be concerned. But what I saw some people saying already, like, well, he hasn't hit a home run to right field. He hasn't hit anything with power to right. I don't understand why. If he's still putting up quality at bats, hitting a WRC plus over 100, where's the problem? Yeah. I don't understand. Is it because we expect him to be this 300 hitter with 20 home runs and 30? I understand we made a big deal about Colt Keith, but I've never said that he's going to be a Hall of Famer. I never Colt Keith he's done really well for his level. He's earned himself a major league spot. It's 3 games in. I'm not worried about it. Now,
and he's just young. That's all it is. Spencer Torkelson came up, struggled. Riley Green didn't really ever really struggle, but he still struck out a lot. This is just kind of like the continuation of development. You don't just get to the big leagues and you're that guy. It's mostly that you get to the big leagues because there's nothing left for you to learn at AAA. Yeah. And it's just about, giving Colt Keith the time and space to get better. Listening to the same people who every time Spencer Torkelson hits a home run are like, oh, we're back.
Yeah. Screw you, Chris Brown. You don't know nothing.
Are you going to be like that? When Colt Keith is 25 and is averaging 18 to 20 home runs a year and putting up a 330 OBP, or are you going to think, oh well, that sucks? Because that's a 2 to 3 WAR player, and that's probably where Colt Keith checks out. Now I do think Colt Keith probably in his prime, maybe, another year, maybe 2 years, taps into a couple 30 home run seasons because he has the power to do it. He just needs to emphasize driving the ball in the air a little bit more, stay back. He was lunging at splitters and caught off balance, between the two.
Big time,
And any pitcher that has a great splitter is going to be a problem for both him and Riley. And, they both kind of look like trash for most of that series. But, it is what it is. Colt Keith had 3 bad games.
Yeah, and
that's all that happened. It's fine.
Just to point out, he finished last year with 13 home runs and a 97 WRC plus, a 120 ISO. Like, not great. Riley Green's rookie year, he had a 98 WRC plus with 5 home runs and a 109 ISO. Like, it's gonna take some time for these guys. Not the vast majority of good hitters don't start off that way in the big leagues. It takes them a few years to figure it out. And so I don't know. I think they wouldn't have given Colt Keith that extension if they were worried about, what kind of production they're going to get from him. He just had a bad
right out of the right out of the gate. I mean, they're not going to push him for 25, 30 home runs just because they signed him to this contract. All he has to do is be a productive hitter and stay in the major leagues. And if he does that, you figure that over time he's going to adapt. He's going to read the pitchers better. He's going to start ambushing people and hitting more home runs, and then everybody will be happy. And then we can move on to, his defense sucks. He's really a first baseman. Not a perfect player. No one's arguing that.
There is a world where Jace Young figures it out and comes up and hits 20, 25 home runs and walks a lot, and it's fine. Like, he's more productive than Colt Keith. The problem that I see right now is Jace Young's weaknesses are a lot easier to exploit than Colt Keith's. Colt Keith, you have to execute good off-speed pitches and good breaking balls. Jace Young, if you throw 95 plus, you can kind of just throw it past him. Now, if you try to throw him past him like 5 times in a row, he'll get you. But if you just do some basic sequencing, throw a 95, 96, and then a slider under his hands, he can't hit it. And that just he needs some time to adjust to that. But I don't know. He would get exploited more than Colt Keith would right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's just a matter of if Jace Young continues to hit the ball well in Toledo against some Vance pitching, then
he'll get his chance again.
He will get his chance. Yeah. I mean, they're heading down the Red Rock or Round Rock.
Round Rocket, yep.
Yeah. They're heading out to Red Rocks with John Tesh.
Yeah.
Playing the Jazz. It is weird, though, that they are... Brent, did you have any explanation? Did you guys find out why they're heading down to Round Rock at all? Because I've never seen them play a PCL team in the middle of the year.
No,
it doesn't make any sense.
I mean, it's kind of great because it's it makes sense to get these guys out of the north and not miss games and have a little bit of, cross-pollination between, whatever, the Texas League, PCL.
Yeah.
I would love to see it at both upper levels, but I didn't really hear any particular reasoning. It's going to be a weird year in general because I was thinking about taking on the Tarpons with the Flying Tigers.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be rainouts. They've got that schedule so tight using George Steinbrenner Stadium. That's going to be a cluster. But no, I didn't actually hear anything about why they decided to travel down there this year. I just kind of was like, Round Rock, huh? When I looked at the
so Jake says that So he says that St. Paul and Toledo are the only teams that are playing in a crossover game. So that's interesting. Maybe they're just slowly rolling that out, which I actually don't mind because if they the PCL, of course, the ballpark's a little different. I mean, they're technically Sacramento's gonna be home of a major league team this year. You have Tacoma, you have the Rainiers, which is a pretty good stadium.
Yeah.
You have, I think Las Vegas is still there technically until the A's come. So that's another elevation. That's a different elevation. Same thing with Reno and Albuquerque. So I don't know. That would be cool to see a team like Toledo out there. But, it's also a lot of travel. But either way, it'd just be interesting to see.
Yeah, owners would have to be willing to pay for it. But it would be interesting to see some kind of mixed series or sort of like a, whatever it would be, like the International League All-Stars versus the PCL All-Stars, something like that would be fun.
Yeah. I don't know.
I think that is the AAA All-Star game. They do that, but yeah,
that's true.
But
I mean, a little more extended situation.
It doesn't seem like, do they even have AAA All-Star games anymore?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, it doesn't feel like it's been a while since they've had that. I don't know. Just
maybe not. I thought they still did. We'd have to look into it. But
we get all draft heavy in late June and July, and I'm losing track of what's going on.
Yeah, and the AAA All-Star game is usually, just some 28-year-old who's got 25 home runs before heading off to Korea.
Yeah, yeah. Like Victor trying to follow in the footsteps of Victor Reyes.
I didn't realize until Jed pointed out that Victor Reyes was just a monster in Korea and broke the record for single season hits. All right, well there you go, Jake. So they don't have a AAA All-Star game. Okay.
See, I knew it. I just I felt like I haven't heard about it in a while.
That's good because I was like, man, how did I miss it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought they'd hit it. Well,
All right. But that isn't the kind of thing we're that interested in anyway. But it would be fun to see something like that.
Yeah, that's right. It used to be on MLB Network. Good call there.
yeah, I guess they still play the the championship series or whatever, where it's just a 1-game series, isn't it? International League champion against the Pacific Coast League champion.
PCL team. So yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know. We're still waiting on getting the official rosters for the other 3 teams. We've heard some whispers behind the scenes about where players are going. We saw Justice Bigby hit a home run for Toledo and then get sent down to Erie, which is
off the Frickers building.
Unfortunate, but kind of, unfortunately, it does tell you what the organization thinks about him, and that they've been bringing in all these other outfilders.
Yeah.
Ben Gamble,
Jack Dunn.
Brewer, what's his
Brewer
face?
Hicklin. Yeah, like
Brewer,
they're I don't know. They're
Desperate.
going after players, and
Desperate is what they are. Yeah.
Big B's heading down to Erie, which is you'd hope that he can mash down there and get back up to Toledo, but I don't know.
Yeah, it starts to get into kind of org land there, but if it's still always up to the player. Like if he has a really good year and could improve himself defensively, he'd at least have a shot to catch on somewhere. Yeah. Casey McGee made the AAA All-Star game.
Wasn't he a Tiger? Was he a Tiger at one point?
Casey McGee, he was, and I think the 2019 season or maybe 2017.
Yeah, definitely an Avila years guy.
Yeah, they were on the broadcast. They're saying that Bigby has added 15 pounds of muscle, the classic 15 pounds of muscle. He looked about the same to me, but maybe he's just ripped now.
I thought Colt or Kerry Carpenter maybe added 15 pounds of muscle because I can't see his cheekbones anymore.
Yeah,
he's all beefy. Got a little beefy. So here's a question for you guys, just off the top, to talk about Erie's roster. Like, do you guys think Tyron Lorenzo will make that roster?
Yeah,
I think Lorenzo will be there. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think any of the other top 5 prospects will make it right off the gate, or do you think they'll kind of hold Clark McGonigal back a little bit longer?
We're assuming Clark and McGonigal and Briseño are going to be in West Michigan. We think Campos is going to be in Erie.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
But
Jaden Ham, of course, probably you would assume.
Yeah, and probably Jake Miller.
Jake Miller, yeah.
Montalvo, maybe, I don't know. Like that's a close.
Montalvo, I think is going to end up in Erie. I think. Again, we don't know for sure.
Yeah. No, I'm just spitballing here. Yeah,
because he's another one who's Rule 5 eligible. He was last year, I think. So if they plan on protecting him, they probably want to get him up a little bit higher.
Yeah.
But it's a logjam now, like you were saying earlier, where basically nobody went from Erie to Toledo. I've been joking that it's harder to get to Toledo than it is to Detroit. Like,
what does Jake Colton have to do to get to play
Jake
first
Colton
and the Mud Ends?
Yeah,
Trey Cruz, Trey Cruz can't crack that roster somehow. Like you just think
dudes have been in for 4 years.
Yeah. You think just for versatility's sake, Trey Cruz would at least be useful. But
No, I know that Lynn Henning was trying to say that Kevin McGonigal is going to start in Erie, and
he's the least likely, right? Because of the Hammett, you just want to get him in a groove again. I'm not 100% on with Mark's, McGonigal by July at third base argument, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if McGonigal, jumped to Erie by May and hit his way to Toledo by August. That seems fairly reasonable. Max Clark, I think we all, we love the bat, we love the player, but he's just not as precocious a hitter as McGonigal is. So it makes sense to give him more time at West Michigan. And, Briseño, if you're going to continue catching him, and because he got in such good shape, there seems to be a little more optimism from some quarters that he can keep catching. Then you're probably going to play him at West Michigan just so we can catch all, or at least a good part of the year and try to get back and see if he can pick up where he left off and build on those skills, or is he going to be rusty? And they're just going to eventually decide sometime this season, well, screw it. The bat is, too dangerous, too good. We can't have him down in the lower minors trying to figure out how to catch for too much longer.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the questions with those guys.
And if you look at the situation in West Michigan right now, in Erie rather, Erie is going to have another veteran roster. Their pitching staff is still going to be pretty good. I think there's, as far as like somebody asked about Isaac Pacheco, Jay Bell thinks he's gonna be out of baseball. Pacheco, this is a make or break year for him because I think if he can hit with power and he can hit the ball with more lift and stop striking out so much, then he has a good arm and he can play third just fine. I think he's okay at third. But I mean, if you look at both potentially Erie and potentially West Michigan's rosters, they're both going to be veteran laced. There are going to be some names you're going to be like, from what we've heard, that they're going to be like, what, really? Like, and so I think for me, as far as like the catching situation goes, it'd be a good sign to see if Hernandez would start at West Michigan to go along with
Enrique Jimenez?
Hernandez, if he starts at West Michigan. But the one roster we have no idea at all between the Complex League and Lakeland is Lakeland's roster. Like, to me, Lakeland's roster is like it literally is just because, like, is Owen Hall going to be there? Is Bryce Rayner going to be there? Are they going to be conservative and have those guys on the Complex League? Because West Michigan, you can pretty much figure out, okay, Colin Field, for example, is going to probably start there. Max LB will probably start at West Michigan. Andrew Sears could go either way.
Mm-hmm. Zach Lee. West Michigan.
Yes, Zach Lee. Daniel Cabrera. Insurance job. He's not going to be. He's not. Daniel Cabrera. He's still on the roster technically, but he has not appeared in a game since July.
He's on the restricted list, and I think they can keep him there until he becomes a minor league free agent, which would be another 2 seasons, I think. Yeah, and I believe they will.
Yeah, they don't. Let's just say he's burned a lot of bridges from what we've heard. He's playing,
They're just going to hold him in, confinement, basically. Yeah, I mean, just looking at Lakeland, like what they could do, there's like 20 pitchers that they've drafted in the past 2 drafts that any of them could start or relieve for Lakeland, and I have no idea, I mean, you can guess Fran Yerbro will be in the middle infield somewhere. You would hope Bryce Rayner will be playing shortstop. You don't know. Yeah. Other than that, it's like, is Kristen Santana going to be there again? Like, like, who knows?
I mean, I could put together a roster there that would be really fun.
Yeah.
Like, you could have Carson Rucker playing third and Rayner playing short and Montilla playing second, and
keep Callahan there in the outfield.
Yeah, Callahan in the outfield. You could have, the pitching is tougher. Like, it wouldn't shock me if they hold Hall and Scheffelbein back and have them in the Complex League a little bit. Yeah. Depends on how they look. Just because you want to conserve their innings a little bit, but the
extended spring training dance with them, and then Complex League in June, Lakeland in July or August if things go well, right?
So by the way, this is a projected roster. This is not the official roster. This is a projected roster. Cannot stress to you enough. I don't want somebody going, well, no, we don't have the official roster. So this is what we think might be at Erie. So
Kenny Sirwa.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be in AA, but we'll see.
No, I don't think so either. I just project. Yeah, I don't think so either. Hayden Urbe, who confirmed to us, by the way, that he
seems like a fun guy.
Yeah, he told us he throws a changeup. His changeup is best pitch, and I can see the potential there. Why the Tigers got him there. There's some good intriguing stuff there. Jonathan wants to know: do you think the Tigers lost some hope in Young due to poor spring? Yeah, I think the announcers talked about that in Toledo too over the weekend.
Yeah, I'm not sure about how much they hoped necessarily initially anyway, but it was sort of like it felt like there was a real mission, to do a couple things this spring, and he didn't do them. So that's not great. But I don't know. I don't like when people say was he in their plans or not, because they shouldn't have those kind of plans. They should be kind of reacting with what happens. Is all. I'm just being pedantic about that, probably.
Well, I think. I don't know. I've never gotten we talked about this before. I've never gotten the sense that they were in love with Jace Young. And I joked before, not even joke, but like it felt a little bit like they brought him up last year just to kind of get it out of the way. I know people want to see him, so let's do it. Like, because he wasn't, I don't think they needed to bring him up, and I don't think he was tearing the cover off the ball or whatever. They wanted to get a look at him. Yeah. But it's true. Like, the third base job was his to lose this spring. Like, they were giving him every chance to win that job, and he didn't take it. And I think that's got to be a little disheartening. But I'm sure they have a plan for him to get it back together and hopefully, become a valuable big leaguer. But
He's probably
yeah,
going to get a chance within like another month, or
yeah.
two. I wouldn't be surprised at all. But yeah, if you kind of burn out the second chance next year, you're 26. I mean, it is really go time for Jace Young to like, at least hit right-handers and show some power and make himself useful
Yeah.
in
I mean,
some capacity.
that's the power's the main thing, right?
Yeah,
He's going to have to hit for power. We know he can get on base, but that getting on base can't be your main skill. There's a reason it's not one of the 5 scouting tools, right? Like it's a
right.
hugely valuable tool if it comes in conjunction with
Yeah.
hitting or power or speed. Even like if you can get on base a ton and steal bases, you got some value. But if you just walk
Yeah.
and strike out, they're not gonna. There's not a
They're
whole lot of.
eventually just going to start pouring it in on you and daring
Yeah.
you to hit. That like
Yeah.
they won't pitch you with any degree of caution. It'll just be just hard fastballs, top of the zone. Until you show us something.
I.e. Spencer
You're out of the
Torkelson.
league, kid.
Yeah. Spencer Torkelson last year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is kind of what it is, right? Like if you're not hitting for power, I mean, I guess there's a little more value because he was playing third base, but it's he's not doing it terribly well.
Yeah.
But in any event, like I don't know.
And maybe that was the other thing
early.
too, is if he had come out and played really good defense and like shown, some new aspect to his game. He was trying to sell that side of things, but it didn't really look that different. Like maybe he was a little bit quicker. Maybe he moved, he worked on his athleticism a little bit, worked on his lower half, was moving side to side a little better maybe, but it's all, it's all very fine slices of variation there. I would say there wasn't too much to write home about.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
he's
think-
either going to hit or he isn't.
And he made a couple plays at third base this year over the weekend that were fine, and it's the same thing with like whether it's gonna be Hayu Lee or not that plays second or third base. So the defense, I think, like I said, the defense overall this weekend was kind of just it wasn't pretty out there. I will say that. I mean, I was
Where,
kinda,
in Toledo?
Toledo, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know we didn't really talk about the Tigers that much, and I don't know. We probably want to get out of here before the game starts, but that was one of the as encouraging as a sweep can be. There was a lot to like about that series. The lefties didn't hit, and they didn't get any hits with minute and scoring position, but a lot of really grindy at bats, getting on base a lot. They played. I don't know if it was flawless defense, right? But they played pretty good defense. There was the one weird play at first base where I don't know if it was a Sweeney throw or Keith came off the bag too soon, but
maybe both. Like Keith kind of had to come off the base there, I think, especially as a new first baseman. But maybe a veteran would have stretched for. I don't know.
But I thought they played good defense. I think there was a lot to be encouraged by. It's just they didn't get the hits when they needed. But
the thing I came away with the Dodgers, you know how good the lineup is, you know how good the starters are. But what is really, really terrifying about that team and won't get enough news is that bullpen. Like that bullpen was fucking unhittable.
Anthony Banta, these guys are just like
they're pulling Yimi Garcia out in like the 7th inning with like a 4-run lead. It's like that dude's just an afterthought, and we got Kenta and
I know that there was the Tigers had a chance, and I think it was game 1, right, where they I don't know, they all blend together, but basically they had 2 men on with Sweeney and Keith up, and Sweeney struck out, and then Keith, people were complaining because Trinan is throwing the sinker with 2 feet of movement, and then he threw a cutter. He'd thrown like 2 cutters, and so the pitch right before sank right into the heart of the plate. Not into the heart of the plate, but it was
you caught it.
I think Keith took it, and so the next pitch he was like, all right, well, he throws me that pitch again, I'm going to swing because it's going to hit my barrel, and it's the cutter, and so he swings on a pitch that's like a foot inside. But it's like there's a reason that guy got paid a lot of money to be a closer. These guys are really good, and I mean they got to Tanner Scott. He's been one of the best, like 5 best relievers in the last 3-4 years. They got to him.
Handled Vesia well, handled a couple of them well.
They I don't know. They looked like the dudes from last year, minus a couple important bats, and it just didn't work out. But I don't know. Hopefully they can get a couple wins here in Seattle and head home and take care of business against the White Sox.
Just right the ship here is the goal for the rest of the month, because it's a tough schedule and they don't really look like they're going to get anyone back until the end of the month. Maybe Veerling, but that seems to be kind of getting quieter by the day rather than more positive. So I don't know.
That's concerning. Real quick too, before we get out of here, because we do want to Joe predictions. Jay wanted to ask about Joe predictions, but I mean, you look at the rest of the division. I mean, look at Minnesota though. Minnesota's been outscored, and they're getting their asses kicked. I mean, 26. I think it's like run differential is pretty high. So the White Sox actually have a win over than Minnesota does. So it's an interesting thing to see. But
The
either
Braves also got just smacked
Yeah.
to start with, and now they have the Dodgers.
Yeah,
the beginning of the season is no time to like start jumping ship and overjudging things too soon.
and the Braves just lost Jackson or Profar. They lost Profar for 80 games for PED suspension, and then just now, just announced just now by Jeff Passan of ESPN, the Boston Red Sox signed an extension to Garrett Crochet for 6 years and $170 million with an opt out after 2030. Yeah.
Wow.
So there you go.
Offer that deal to Scooble.
Yeah. There you go.
There you go.
Let me go check and see if my torpedo bat shipment has reached the.
No, the torpedo bats. Yeah, that's
taking those steroids will give you a torpedo bat.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, well, after that, the Brewers still out like a couple. My alert thing was going off every 5 seconds. Like, what the hell is going on in New York? What is? Yeah,
it feels like maybe the ball is a little juicy this year. We'll see. Hopefully, we'll see if people hit home runs here in Seattle.
Yeah. Is that a 2019 headline there? Willie Castro broke up a no-hitter and it came in the pitch.
Nice. Good for Willie.
Great job, Scott Harris.
No, I'm thinking for Job, I'm hoping like 6 scoreless with 12 strikeouts, right? But I'm thinking it's going to be more like 4 2/3, like
2
3
runs,
runs.
3 strikeouts.
Yeah, I'm thinking like 3 walks, 3 strikeouts, just a couple of hits, but maybe one of them's a homer. And I'm sure he'll look good at times, but no, just want to see him go out there and compete and show some feistiness and throw strikes.
Attack.
Good strikes. Yeah.
I think it goes 5 innings, just 5 innings, and he allows 2 runs. Like what? You know what? I'll go 3 runs. 3 runs, 5 innings. The runs come early, but then he settles down and strikes out 6.
I like that. If he throws the cutter more, he'll strike out 6. That's my argument right now.
It's always good to remember, Justin Verlander's first start was not good. Scooble's first start was not good.
Nope.
These guys have to come up to the big leagues and get beat up a little bit before they learn. So just be prepared for that and hope that the offense breaks out a little bit.
Yeah.
So, by the way, I did had the Erie's roster is not going to be out till Thursday or Friday. So if you want to know what Erie's roster is, you're going to have to wait till game day.
Yeah.
But the Whitecaps, I think, is coming out on Wednesday.
For media day, correct.
So we could kind of put 2 and 2 together. If we have Toledo and we have West Michigan, we go, all right, either these guys are dead or on Erie.
Yeah.
Or on the IL.
I'm excited to see Job. I'm excited to see Casey. Yep. We have Scoobs going on Wednesday. The only problem is that we got Logan Gilbert and Luis Castillo for Seattle. It's not going to be a pushover. Should be a fun series. I really like these 2 teams matched up against each other. They both feel like 84, 85 win teams, with good pitching. So it might be low scoring, but it should be kind of an interesting series, I think.
By the way, these 2 teams are among the top, the worst 2 with runners in scoring position. With the Tigers
so far this year.
Second worst, Seattle being the worst. So they're hitting.
Exactly.
Seattle's hitting like 120 or something like that. It's
neither of them to get anybody in scoring position.
Yeah.
The
same problem that Seattle had last year is continuing this year already, and that was the same problem they had last year. And so it's interesting to see how these 2. There's gonna be a lot of like Tubin. What is it with the Tigers called Tubin? Was it like what's the analogy or the anagram or whatever the
Tootbland? No.
Tootbland. Tigers threatened but do not score.
Yeah.
Thrown out on the bases like a nincompoop. That's Tootbland.
Yeah. I thought you were talking about Jeffrey Tubin. I'm like, well,
Rock versus Rock. There we go. I like that. That's a good one right there.
Yeah.
All right, so go ahead. We're gonna go ahead and watch the game, if you will. So thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back next week with a full slate of minor league action as West Michigan kicks off their season on Friday. I can't remember who they play right now. I know Erie plays Harrisburg.
Yeah.
And Lakeland, I can't remember off the top of my head. Right
West
now,
Michigan's against Dayton. Dayton Dragons as usual.
Dayton's on the mothership. Okay, so they are playing
Somebody
Dayton.
was saying that they may be getting Chase Burns in their first outing.
Oh, that'd be fun, sort of.
Was the number 2 pick in the draft last year, I think?
For us, I think.
Yeah, throws 100 with a wipeout slider. So we'll see. But it'll be fun to check out.
Yeah. All right, so stay close, everybody. We'll talk to you next week, or we'll talk to you later this week for Motor City Metrics on Thursday. Have a good night, everybody, and happy Jackson Job Day.